Well, hi, everybody. The last page of the StarNews Special Edition magazine commemorating UNCW's basketball season and touches on where the Seahawks rank among programs at this school, programs in the CAA, and all that type of stuff. And to help me break that down, former UNCW beat writer, basketball knowledge king extraordinaire, many titles, Brian Mull is here with me. He's seen a little bit of action in Wilmington at Trask Coliseum through the years, so thought I'd bring in somebody who's actually seen a little bit of it to help me digest it a little bit.
Well, thanks, Alex. Appreciate you having me, and this should be fun.
So obviously, high expectations coming into the year, lived up to them. Most wins in program history, got back to the NCAA tournament, the sixth CAA tournament title, another CAA regular season title. Obviously, a lot of good happened this year if you were in Trask Coliseum, and a lot of great happened. 63 broken records by the time it was all done. So many things that we've talked about in this magazine, but comparing that with the other 5 NCAA tournament teams, which that's the high criteria we'll use. Does this edition of UNCW basketball, in your opinion, rank as the best edition of UNCW basketball?
You know, it's a great question, and there's so many ways in which to look at that. And I think in a lot of people's minds, the 02 team, because they did win a game beating Southern Cal in the NCAA tournament, will always kind of have that honor until another team is able to do that. But when you look at what, like you said, what this team accomplished and the way they were able to score and play offense and the way they were able to win the regular season outright in the 12th best league in the country and win the tournament in convincing fashion, playing some, from a regular season perspective, probably the best regular season counting the conference tournament.
Yeah.
And then, 02, I mean, honestly, I always thought the 03 team, when you had Brett Blizzard as a senior and John Goldsberry as a freshman and Craig Callahan as a senior, who was a terrific inside player, and certainly they lost a great, just disappointing, crushing game to a lot of people in Wilmington when Drew Nicholas hit the shot there in Nashville. To me, that was like the most perfectly put together team at this level that you could have. It had a little bit of everything. It had outside shooting. It had obviously a great player like Brett. It had Craig Callahan who could score inside and out. So those 3 stand out to me in some fashion, and you can certainly make the case because of, like you said, the records, the style of play of this team being so different from those teams, and their ability to just make shots and outscore people, and an excitement factor. I mean, they've had seasons where they didn't have as many dunks as Devontae Kaycock had in conference play.
Right.
Certainly, he was one of the guys just going around town, and I know, like, my wife's 4th graders, that was their favorite player, and then so many other people as well. So certainly from an entertainment standpoint, this was definitely right up there.
Yeah, and we all recognize, Michael Barnes and I have talked about this on the podcast a couple of times. We'd almost like to see if you've seen not Creed, but the Rocky movie, the last one, where they do the fight between the current reigning champ and Rocky Balboa digitally on the computer. We'd like to see what that looks like between the old school UNCW teams and the new school, because, like you said, they did it so differently. It was so much more defense back in the day under Brownell and Wainwright. They didn't have as many prolific offensive scorers. I mean, Blizzard and then a couple other guys would help out, but not the guys like Flemings and Ingram and that laundry list of players. So it is a totally different way of doing things. For me, having seen just last year's team and this year's team, I'd have to think that this team is the best that we've seen here in Wilmington, just based on the records, the performance, and what they did. But I think you're right. If they had won a tournament game, I think it would have cemented that place in history.
Yeah, no, without question. It just, at this level, so much of college basketball focuses on the 3 weeks of the NCAA tournament, and not that they needed to validate a 29-win season in any form or fashion, but that would have certainly pushed them over the top. Again, incredible to shatter the school record for victories by 4. And you're right about style of play. I mean, let's not forget that in 2001, UNCW lost a CAA title game 35-33 to George Mason, and this team usually had 35 by like the under 8 or under 4. Could score 35 points in a hurry. So, yeah, certainly a different animal.
Now, obviously, with the sixth CAA title, I believe that ties for the most CAA titles in league history, at least from the tournament standpoint. Was this the best CAA team we've seen? Where does UNCW rank among those CAA programs at this point? Because obviously there were some great years with the VCUs and George Masons and stuff, but where does UNCW sit in that equation right now?
You know, and it is almost two separate things in that the tournament. People forget that VCU finished third in the regular season in the CAA, and then went and won 5 games in the NCAA tournament after losing the CAA championship game in the finals, and then the George Mason team as well. A lot of they were one of the last at largest to get in. Lost in the semifinals of the CAA tournament to Hofstra. A lot of people assumed their season was over, and then they went on an unbelievable run, beating some of the powers of the game. So. They would certainly have to, any conversation, they have to be involved.
Right.
And the team that this team reminded me of, and I said this to a few people this year, was the 07 VCU team, which had Eric Maynard, and he hit the famous shot there in Buffalo to beat Duke. And just the style of play was very reminiscent. They had seniors. They had 4 guys on the court who could make a 3-point shot at all times. They played small. They pressed you and turned you over. But we could give up a few points in the half court at times.
Yeah.
And I just felt like all year long I was like, there's a lot of comparisons number-wise and just watching them play stylistically. So, that's a short list. I mean, there's a couple of Old Dominion teams that you certainly have to I think it was 2010 when they defeated Notre Dame in the first round of the tournament. And, just a completely different style, just big, like old Big East guys, just big, wide-bodied, bruising guys that were going to get all the rebounds and make it really difficult to score on them. But yeah, I mean, I'd say a top 5, top 6 team, and had they won a game in the NCAA tournament, maybe could make an argument to be right there at the top.
Yeah, and all those names that you mentioned, no longer in the CAA, so it's an even weirder thing when you talk about the greats of the CAA, but none of them are here anymore.
Exactly.
So as of right now, UNCW is the best because they're the only ones still left. So, but yeah, I agree with that. I mean, when you're talking about teams that have made runs to the Final Four and stuff, that obviously kind of takes the cake over anything else. UNCW wins a game or two in the tournament, and like you said, they're in the mix for that conversation. But what the Seahawks did this year, definitely historic, and definitely something that'll be talked about for years to come. Thanks so much to Brian for joining me, and that's all we have for now.